And now let's get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to our very first episode of Removing the Red Tape with Nat and Neek. Neek, how are you doing
Hi,
today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing very well, very well. Thanks for taking the time out of your day. Let's go ahead and get started. This
Yeah.
podcast for us, our goal here is to bring you value. We are the experts when it comes to the Baltimore City, Maryland market, and our goal is to offer those that are looking to invest in real estate the tools, the resources, and the information coming from our boots on the ground perspective.
Right. I love it. I love it.
Neek.
So, I was gonna say we need to start into how this got started. It's crazy right now. I'm a little nervous, so bear with me.
You're doing incredible so far. So let's go through that. How did this get started?
Okay. Long story. We got time, right? So I'm gonna try to make it as easy to follow as possible. So I recall this is my recanter of how we kind of connected. Probably a year before we actually started working together, you reached out to me, and I just remember you always asked me a lot of questions. Just curious. I don't know if it was just picking my brain or was that your process of vetting out property managers, but I always felt like when I answered your questions in theory, that you were ready to go, but a lot of times you always left me hanging. I don't know if it was just like you're working with someone else and you was like not ready to get rid of them or what your process was, but it was kind of funny because I'm like, this guy's asking me a lot of questions. And I'm like one of those people, if you ask me questions, I use that as a sign that you're interested to know the process. So it gives me a chance to explain, and I'm a wordy person. So when you would ask me those questions, I would answer them, but then I would never hear from you. And then like
Oh,
I don't
I
know.
ghost you? What is
Yes,
this?
you did, like for a year. And then I don't know what happened. You can tell your side of the story in that transition. I would say you came back to me right before the pandemic. I think it was the end of 2019. My memory is, I don't have exact dates, but I kind of very vaguely remember. And you was explaining to me your two properties that you currently had in your portfolio that wasn't really performing. And I think we kind of started over building a relationship. And I literally, truth be told, I went on Bigger Pockets and I actually Google, well, not Google, but I usually like go online to figure out when you tell me you met me on Bigger Pockets, it kind of lets me know who you are.
Yeah.
So I went and looked up your blog posts for all your blog posts, which you can do actually and saw like what you were saying, what you were looking for, and stuff like that. So I was like, this guy is really trying to really understand this process of our wonderful world of investing. And you was definitely curious and interested in the BRR process, BRRR. So I was like, I like him. Like, I like his energy. He's positive. And that was one of the things that stuck with me was that every scenario, everything we talked about, I don't care if it was the worst scenario ever, your energy has always been positive about everything. So it's been a journey since and a lot of ups and downs, but I feel like as a whole, it's been a lot of upward movement and figuring each other out and learning boundaries. But I like that story that I always find the people that's been in my life that was not easily attracted to me, they stuck around a lot longer. They
Sure.
didn't easily get on my bandwagon right away. They might have went back to something else. Like my partner, for example, we had the same similar situation. And my husband, like everybody that kind of went away or was a gap, and we came back. It's been like a longer journey with them.
That offers a lot. Let me dive in here. You said a lot of good things. You're absolutely right on some areas, and I need to make sure I bring up a couple areas. Let me
Oh
go.
Lord, you took notes. You probably did some
I got a
research.
little mental memory here. Hold on. You were spitting fire. Now it's my turn. Neek, you're absolutely right. From the perspective of how we first met as a real estate investor, I knew from the start, from the get-go, while today, currently, it might change a little bit, or the thought process might differ from our goals, but it's always been from the start, we wanted to build a rental real estate empire, right? The rentals, the portfolio, the buy and hold. And with that, the property manager is the bloodline. The idea behind this is I can do all the necessary work from searching for the properties, from the rehab of the properties, doing all the cash flow analysis. But once that property is immediately turned over to that property manager, that is where there's nothing I can do from the perspective of There's a lot of trust that goes into the relationship between
Yeah,
the owner, the landlord, and the property management company and the property manager, along
exactly.
with finding a tenant. Because I can do just a beautiful job from roof to foundation, getting everything from the top end finishes, all the quality of work. But
Yeah,
let's say a property manager decides to put in a tenant in place in that property, and they go about wreaking havoc.
yeah,
That's time, that's money, that's resources, that's all down the window. So all that to say, you're absolutely spot on that this was a time. This was a long process from my perspective. I don't even want to show
right.
you now, but I have a spreadsheet that I was asking all these property managers all these questions. I don't know if I shared
Wow,
this
I
with
knew
you.
you had a pro. Knowing you now, it would make more sense to know you were vetting and looking like you probably had questions, probably looked up the best questions to ask,
All
all
of
that
it.
good stuff.
Yeah. And even the clients that I coach today, I have that list of questions, and every now and then we'll go through them so we can actually talk about, hey, when you're connecting with a property management company, these are the questions that you need to ask. And those are the
Exactly.
same exact questions that I was asking you. Neat. It's super important. Because here's
Yeah,
the thing, those two property managers that you spoke of, you're absolutely right. It was first going through the initial process of figuring out, all right, who's going to be the number one, the first property manager.
exactly.
We already had this thought process of saying, okay, what if we did one property manager per property to really go through? Because there's
That's a
only
good
so much you can do
strategy.
from an interview perspective, right? Neat,
Exactly.
you blew it out of the water, but so did some of these other property managers.
Mhm.
And if I remember correctly, it was something like, I think 20 emails, give or take, sent out to different property managers.
What? That's
Half
tough.
of them, half of them responded. So
Wow.
right then and there,
That weeded out half.
we did not have quick and easy, fine, that's all right with me, right? But then
Mhm.
that's when the conversation started, and I think it was, what I will tell you, and I think I've mentioned this to you throughout some of the time, it's your ability to be so responsive and quick to respond, and the level of detail you provide. It always, I can look back and say, all right, I definitely recall this, where I remember one property manager responded to my email, my inquiry, and said, hey, yeah, let's connect, I'm looking to be a long-term buy and hold investor. And I'm in that initial email, I'm letting that property manager know I'm looking to build a marriage. I want a relationship long term. This is not no quick one night thing. I want to
Yeah,
be here and grow with you. Right.
right.
And in that introductory email, I make sure I let them know that this is how important you are to me. And then immediately the response is, my business office hours are only open from, I mean, it was such a select amount. And for me, I don't have cell phone access during the day. So that one already right there was pretty much out. And the idea
Yeah,
of not looking for new clientele already kind of shut me off. So you're absolutely spot on. There was a full interview process. We connected with two other property managers. That's when I came back to Property Wise. The end my headache, I believe, is a
yeah.
slogan you
That
guys
was
throw
the
out.
tagline. And the shout out
And
to my partner Michelle. She came up with that.
oh, that was good. That's good. Respect. Respect. It just makes so much sense because we were getting several headaches. I was
Yeah,
getting some emails, I was getting some calls, and we can dive into those stories a little
yeah.
later, but I'll keep it
Definitely.
short. Our ability to connect in our first meeting itself, or I guess several phone calls, several emails, got us to the point where we are today.
Exactly. I love that story. It made sense now. We didn't really talk about the behind the scenes of our relationship, but it's just so funny because after you brought that up, I was thinking to myself, I really like working with, first of all, let me rewind. Around the time that we connected, I was at the process probably 4 years into Property Wise branding. And I'm gonna tell you, we literally was on a roller coaster of finding our target audience. We were in the beginning, I was so hungry starting out coming from corporate America, where I was eager to take on anybody. So it was like one of those things I burnt really quickly because I actually scaled up so fast. When I first opened Property Wise, we got up to 400 doors, I think, by year 2.5. And that's unheard of. I read every blog, I read every post, I put us out there, I did signage, I invested so much in overhead costs that we were destined to succeed. But then I looked at our business, our team at the time, as a body, and what we represented was not there. So it's so funny because one of the things was that I promised myself I want to be successful in my field. And I know this is like I always tell you and my clients, like this is a ministry based business. Like it chose me. I didn't choose it, which we can
And
go into how I got started in the industry. But I just find that it's so interesting how we connected. And you were somebody who I kind of like to say I manifested an owner like yourself. Just synergy, like-minded, positive, understand that it's not a get rich by night type industry, but it can be very profitable if you work it the right way.
Couldn't agree more. Quick story for that is when we look at and we talk about repairs or when we talk about a rehab, just to piggyback on your point, we can absolutely go for the cheapest material, the cheapest quality, the cheapest item. But if it does not provide that long term gain, then the initial investment, while inexpensive, is going to hurt us later on down the road. I've gone through this. We've walked through that path where you kind of shown me the light in that aspect. I've had those conversations several times before where in this journey, I can say I've honestly lost thousands of dollars. And
Yeah.
in that process, that's the cost of tuition. That's where we learn so that we can, you and I can have this conversation. And I can say, you know what, Nick, you're right. I went through that. I went through that the hard way.
And
And
that's
that's
the thing. Most people don't realize you're willing to go through it and realize that everything's a trade off. Some people are so stubborn that they don't listen and they even go through it and they still haven't learned to listen. So,
You're absolutely right. And that's why we're here to remind our listeners and
yeah,
remind those real estate investors that, hey, we've gone through some mistakes, we've gone through some learning curves, we've been through this, and we want to share that with you so you don't have to go through those same mistakes.
exactly. That's always been my purpose. Like I always tell clients at the end of the day, just how we structured our business. And not to talk too much about the business itself, is more or less just to kind of give an idea of how we do things. Like I told you, we was on the fast track trying to sign everybody, then we crashed and burned and realized we were bankrupt spiritually and physically. And we just rebranded everything. We let clients easily terminate with the 30-day notice. And that 30-day notice is just generally for their own benefit because it allows us to transition properly. And we take a lot of time behind the scenes to make sure things in our control, everything in our control is done in a way that is kind of like white glove, high level that a lot of other competitors don't really do. And I definitely feel like it's one of those things that people typically don't appreciate until something goes wrong. We're one of the very few in companies that we're the least amount in court every month. I've been doing this since I was 18 years old, and I've probably only been in court less than a dozen times, and that's over 16 years. That speaks highly. Where I go to court and I see the same other competitors in court every month. We try to do things the right way, and also like when our owners prepare to transition, maybe they're trying to liquidate or transition their assets to cash out, they can do so and get maximum value. So for me, it's bigger than just quick money. You can't just think anybody would want to just live any kind of way. You want to think of it as a whole puzzle. And I just find that just the amount of care and energy we spend on a daily basis, the way we kind of built this from scratch, I can go to sleep at night knowing that we do our very best
Important. That's
or
important.
try.
Not only so we can get that beauty sleep, but I want to dive into there. Neat. Help me understand. Help us appreciate a little bit better. You said you started at 18. What
Yeah.
got you into this world? How did you get started?
So funny. I was working at a nursing home. I actually just got a summer job in high school, and I had every career field that I've been into, someone sought me out. Like I was started in dietary in the summer, one of my first jobs, and then the business office manager of the nursing home reached out to me and said, "Hey, I have a position for a part-time evening receptionist." Now, at the time, I went to one of the top schools in Baltimore. Shout out to
Hey.
Polytechnic, and I was going to if you know that school, it's crazy. Like we do 8 courses a day, like it's crazy nonstop. And I also was hosting clubs and everything, and I worked Monday through Friday from 5 to 8. So
Okay.
during one of my shifts, one of the GNAs, CNAs, whatever the low level nursing are, I can't remember. They call them a certified butt wiper. I don't know.
Oh no. We won't tell them that.
No, it's just funny. It was years ago.
Sure,
So
sure.
one of the young ladies came over to me, and I have a funny story on her too. But she was like, you would be really good in property management. At the time, I was living at home with my parents, didn't have any idea what property management is, never heard of it. I was like, what is property management? She was like, when you go and rent an apartment or something, there's people that's actually behind the scenes, like the agent that shows you the apartment, and the manager behind the scenes that manages the whole complex, the whole place. She was like, you would do really good in that. I was like, well, tell me more. Like, what is it? She was like, well, when I worked there, I didn't work every weekend. I didn't work evenings and holidays. I was like, so that day I went home and I Googled property management jobs.
How about that? Neek, let me ask you,
Yeah.
why would she come to you with that? How did
think because at that time I was very young, impressionable, and her mom was a property manager by trade. Like most people that's in the business, they either have family that knows about it, they have family, or they know how the ins and out. And you kind of tell like empathic people and people who are more caring are generally do well in positions like that. It's not for everybody. She kind of saw some characteristics in myself and how caring I was. Like I would help the nurses of the stations order lunch and do different things, organize for them, whatever I could do outside of my job title. So she probably saw those qualities and was like, you would do good. Knowing how well I spoke at that time and how friendly and bubbly I was, it made all the sense now in hindsight that she recommended me, because it's like a passion is a gift. It's something that, like I said, chose me. And since I actually went home that night and I applied for a job, literally the first job I applied for, I got an interview. Now, mind you, I got an interview and I had to, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna put this out there now, but my aunt, I had to lie and say I worked for her as a leasing agent to get the job.
Go.
Yeah, because I had no experience. And they asked for some experience. The good thing is I interviewed so well that the hiring manager at the time loved me so much she hired me on the spot. And I actually was covering for somebody who was full time. I was only going to work part time, and it was supposed to be a contractual temporary position where she was on maternity leave, and when she came back, she was going to get her job back. But I did so good, killed it. She didn't get her job back. I actually won for the entire company leasing consultant of the year in like 6 months of working it.
Let's go.
I got an award. I leased up the property for like a year straight. And then like every year I got promoted. And like literally I started from part-time leasing agent the first year. The next year I became a full-time leasing agent. The following year I became an assistant manager. The next year I became a property manager. I actually became a property manager just before turning 21 years old.
How about that? What a career, what a journey.
Yes.
And look where we are today. And
then
when you became the property manager, is that still with that company? How did
I actually had to leave.
about?
So this is the funny story. I had to leave the company because at that time it was a lot of, how should I say it? I would say nepotism, but people would probably disagree. It seemed like it was a lot of people that worked in the company for a long time that weren't leaving. I definitely tried to get promoted, but I just couldn't get promoted there. So I took a position in an area that was being redeveloped, and I'm green, don't know anything about the area. It's actually near Hopkins, Johns Hopkins Hospital. And this is before the newer development and things. This is like literally before phase 1 got completed. I took a job with them. I interviewed, got the position, and literally my manager, I love her. I'm so cool with her today. She was such a big inspiration to me because her work ethic was impeccable. And I remember this grasping everything she taught me, and it just soared me to the next, catapult me to the point where the property itself was in such a, how should I say it, in turmoil, where it was a situation where the original homeowners of the area, their homes were demolished so they can build apartment buildings on there. And a part of the policy is called eminent domain. I'm sure you heard of it. They had to agree to give those original homeowners first dibs on when the property was redeveloped. If you know anything about East Baltimore, I'm not sure if you watched The Wire. I tell everybody who's investing in Baltimore, watch The Wire. It tells you everything you need to know. It's not a joke.
I have not seen The Wire.
I know, you are crazy. You're crazy for not
quick
seeing
high level. I'm going to put myself on blast for all of our listeners and viewers. Let's say they haven't seen it either. But I'll be the one to take the fall.
If you ask me, if any rookie call me or ask me or do anything and they haven't watched The Wire, I would say don't call me until you watch The Wire. Call me back and let me know if you still want to do this.
You heard it. You heard it here first, folks.
Watch The Wire. That should be like 101. Like whatever the intro level is to BRR in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Watch The Wire.
Okay.
I mean, if you were born and raised, you know The Wire. You lived it. But the people who are not from here, most people who don't know the culture, they don't have a clue. You need to study The Wire before you get your hands dirty.
All right. So here's what I will say. For a future episode, we'll have to bring back The Wire.
Yeah.
We'll have our similarities, our differences. What's real, what's just for TV, and we'll go through that because I know.
All right, you're going to be freaked out. This is a spoiler alert.
Uh-oh.
You ready for this?
Talk to me.
The Wire was more of I would say, a Hollywood version of the real story. Like it was actually, I personally think living in Baltimore now, like everybody says this, being born and raised, and the crazy thing is a lot of the areas that was shot was more East Baltimore, but my family lineage, like since I'm like 4 generations from here.
Yeah.
They were from those areas and like Lafayette Terrace. At the time, I had an aunt that lived in Murphy Homes, and this is a funny story. Like I can't wait to do a segment on The Wire because that's kind of catapult how I knew I was supposed to be in real estate in some way. My aunt lived in Murphy Homes projects. And I don't know, did you Google that? Do you know anything about Murphy Homes projects? You need to
Nothing
be
on that.
writing notes. This is some tea right now.
Okay. Murphy. Okay. Talk to me.
Murphy
Talk to me.
Home Projects is one of the most dangerous projects in Baltimore City, and it was actually demolished due to high crime, high everything bad. And I just remember my aunt, I can't remember what floor she lived on. From my knowledge, I was very young. I was probably like 6, 7 at the time, 8. She lived on the 14th, I think it was 21 floors, if I'm not mistaken. I think she lived on the 14th floor. And how the buildings were set up is where it's called the project for a reason. It was actually known to be like a government project housing. So
Yeah.
they put all low income into this building, but the problem is, like a lot of other institutions, it's managed in really substandard ways. So I remember being a young girl and my cousins, everybody would go, that would be the house in the summer. Like your parents drop you off. When you get there, you're going to come, you want to see like drug dealers outside, kids playing, fight sometimes, a lot of things you go through. And I remember, I'll never forget this. We would have to go to the grocery store, and each cousin would have a bag in each hand. And we thinking, hey, let's just get on the elevator. She lives 14 floors up. Kid you not, the elevator would break or be broken. Probably out of how many years she lived there, probably only worked probably one time. And my young tail, I would look around, I'd be like graffiti and stuff. I was like, wait, who manages this? Like I just knew something was wrong. Like
Not
why
okay.
why do we have to live in these conditions? Like who
Yeah.
manages this building? So
Yeah.
I would literally look at the office and I would see it because it was near. This is mind you, I'm a kid, so my exact recollection word by word recognition is probably off. But I remember looking in the office, the lights were dim, like nobody was there, no one was managing it. So we would have to walk. The steps were concrete steps on outsides of each building, and they were fenced. If it rained, snowed, sleet, ice, anything, all of that you can have. Some of the steps would be iced out, snow, and we
Yeah.
would have to walk up 14 flights of steps to get to our apartment.
How about that?
And like the hallway smelled like urine, graffiti. It was the worst conditions known to man. I was like, who the heck can live like this? Like, why is this even like acceptable? Like, I just knew at that time, I felt like something in me said, if I'm going to do this, I feel like sometimes housing could provide health, healing to families and kids. Like, just to be in that environment, can you imagine how your mindset is?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so at that, I was on a journey because like no one else cared. I just knew something was different for me because I wondered like who managed this place? Like this is horrible managed. Like I just knew. And so
100%.
fast forward when I started getting into the building and stuff, and I worked when I worked at the property I told you when I left to become an assistant manager.
Yeah.
I literally was in a similar situation. The only difference was everything was brand new, but they had the original tenants there, the original mindset. So they quickly was destroying the property. And these particular properties were so different compared to the other properties that the company had that they were in over their head. Like they didn't have like a cultural awareness how to deal with these type of residents. They didn't have resources for them. Like they had built these brand new properties and they were beautiful, but like you had some of the same issues where crime. I remember when I first started working there, I had, I was ordering lunch because I would work like through lunch. Like that was my thing. Like I wouldn't get up to go to the bathroom. When I had a job, I sit there from 9 to 5, work, 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 work. And I would order lunch at my desk. And I remember the delivery guy would tell me, we don't deliver there. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, yeah, you got robbed 2 weeks ago. This is before I started. And then I read things from tenants would tell me like, a young girl it was on the news. The building was on the news. Mind you, it's a brand new building. It was on the news because somebody barricaded in a common area bathroom a young girl and kidnapped her. So literally everybody that worked there could not get that property, that asset producing. They couldn't figure things out. And then I came, a young impressionable girl. First of all, like had no idea on what I was getting into, and I just knew like I had to change it.
Sure.
And I literally like to give myself kudos because without me being in that property for 5 years, they couldn't finish developing it the way they have in the past 3, 4 years because they couldn't figure out what was the issue. And because nobody was there, boots on the ground that really cared, it was difficult for a upper level management to kind of get the bigger picture. So I really was like boots on the ground. I grew with it and I got the property so good that I don't know how to explain it. Like it just became like better. We got security there and it was able to catapult a brand new development in that entire footprint. And that was one of my strengths. Sometimes you gotta do the hard work initially. And some people like to skip over that.
You came in, this is your new position, you were
Yes.
able to
And I had something
provide
to
such a
prove, you know,
reputation.
I had something to
Absolutely.
prove at that time. I was eager, I was young, I had a lot
Yeah.
of energy, and I just was very passionate and I felt like I was making a difference. So it kind of like even I remember nights I would have to bring my children there. We would be there at 8 p.m. because
I
it was
know.
also like a government regulated building. So we had like research due and paperwork and I just really put everything into that building and it flourished.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
And look at that, 5 years. 5 years did it.
Yes, I gave my 5 years, and it really molded me into the professional that I am today, where I was given the opportunity to be where I am today, where I own my own business with my partner, and we've been doing this since I met my partner in 2013, and we opened Property Wise in 2015. And she
Okay.
and I just, that's a whole nother story, a whole nother day, but we're the same person, but different. Like we have the same soul, but we deal with different parts of everything differently. So it makes it 100% complete when
Yeah.
we're together.
Mhm. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, you broke down, you started with one company, you worked your way up, you became a property manager, and
Hmm.
you were explaining how in 5 years you took a distressed asset,
Yeah.
smelled like urine, there was
Oh
not like
my God.
questionable amount of safety, high crime, and you're able to transition that into a win-win for the tenants, for the company, for the investor. So
Exactly.
where did Property Wise come in?
So property wise, honestly, I think just one of those moments where I don't have the answers to property wise. I think it was just God divine. I don't know if my Christians out there or the people that believe in God, I'm a faithful person. For that alone, I can't take credit for how property wise came about because even me meeting my partner, I've met a lot of people in my life and it's not a lot of people that connects with me because of I like to consider myself a very high level person where I'm not shallow. I'm very about just high vibes. And I meet people in my life, but it's always seasonal. And when I met my partner, I actually met her at, she's a moderator for the local Baltimore RIA, Michelle.
Yeah.
And she's like been doing the landlord meeting, I think, since 2003. If I'm not, she can you go on record or look it up on how long she's been doing it. I actually came to one of those meetings in 2013, just eager for a change. Like I just knew it was something else out there for me to do. And I knew it was in my blood. My mom is a business owner. Her mom ran businesses. Her dad is a business owner. She comes from a long line of business owners. And I knew I was going to own a business. That's always been something that has been, set up for me just due to my lineage. And I didn't know exactly how was I going to do it, but I knew I was great at property management. Like this is the only career path that I've had the most experience in my whole life. And I did it on such a high level, bootstrap my way up the corporate ladder. And I was like, okay, if I'm self-disciplined at that level, it's time for me to do it for myself. And when I reached out to Michelle, it was kind of weird because I take that back. I missed the part. So how I actually connected with Michelle, I came to her RIA meeting after I originally connected with her. My in-laws, they're long-term renters. They always like the convenience and renting and they rent long-term. They one of those people that don't like to deal with maintenance, they don't like any of the headaches. So they were actually looking for a rental property near where I have my home. And it was a situation where they looked and saw property and they came to my home right after. And they were telling me about the property and like how they met this lady. They really loved the home and they showed me the car to the lady. And I'm like looking at the car, I'm thinking it's just like a regular realtor. At the time I was so naive into the property management world. I thought, mostly realtors are doing it through their brokerage and things like that. So when they gave me her business card, it said just property manager. And it was like explaining to me, hey, like they were just telling me about her, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna call her because she doesn't have any of the letters behind her name. It doesn't say realtor. It doesn't say she's associated with a broker. And at that time, I was working as a property manager for my company, and I'm like, this might be it for me, like how to learn how to get my own business.
This is
So while
it.
they're in the living room, I remember this day because this is the day that changed my life forever.
Yeah.
They're in the living room talking to my husband about the property, blah blah blah. I literally snatched the card and I go in the kitchen And I call her the same day, kid you not. This just tell you who I am. I say, you don't know me. My name is Shanika. I'm just wondering. I see you are showing homes. I'm sure you probably get a lot of calls, but I'm really interested if you're looking for intern. I'm willing to work for free. I just want to learn the knowledge of how you start your business because that's my hope and my goal to start my own property management company. She's first thing she said, wait, who? What? How did you get my number? I was like,
You gotta
oh,
reel it back.
I was like, oh, so sorry. My in-laws just seen a property with you and they gave me a car. And now I noticed that you weren't a realtor, but you were just a property manager and explained that I'm a property manager. I'm just looking to have a mentor, someone who can help me. In exchange, I'll give them my knowledge and I can assist them with their business and they just teach me how they open their own business without going through the realtor side of things. And she was like, you know what? I'll call you back. I said, well, no need to call me back. Just to let you know how serious I am. I emailed you my resume while we are on the line.
Let's go.
Over everything. And if you sounds interested, just call me back. She was like, okay. So she looks at my resume, everything, and she called me back. She was like, okay, how about you meet me at a Starbucks near my house? Literally, we met at a Starbucks and we connected. Like I loved her vibe. She loved my vibe. I don't even think that she could quote me on this too. I don't even think at that meeting we talked a lot about business. We was probably talking more like how she got into it. I think I was more listening to her journey in the business. And she was like, okay, I like you. So this is what I'll do. I'll teach you the ways. I am looking for, a showing agent, someone to answer calls and show my properties. And that's a good way to learn the business as the tenant placement side. So it was dead of winter where we connected. I actually showed a property for her. And I don't know, at that time, I was still working heavily. I actually decided that I was going to quit my current job and I took a position as a senior property manager for another company. And it was short lived at that time. And I actually showed her house probably once or twice, didn't go anywhere. I was not really connected at that time. I was going through a lot of other things, chasing money, chasing opportunity. So I
What's
took this
that?
job and I literally felt like I was literally at the lowest point in my life where I made the most money, but I was spiritually bankrupt. I even discussed, self-deleting. Like it was bad. I literally would go to the work. I work managed like over 500 properties myself. And I don't know if I was hazed or what, but my whole team, I had like maybe 8 people under me. They all like took off for one day. And we had move-ins. I was 2 properties. I literally was like, okay, you know what? They ain't gonna play with me. So I wrote up my sleeves. I even was going in vacants, painting properties to get these tenants moved in, doing moving, doing whatever it takes, rolling up my sleeve. Like you guys, I'm a champion. I've been through this before. You can't.
Can't
So
break this.
exactly. So funny thing is, I'm thinking I triumphed the day. The next day, I guess she knew how everybody called out my manager at the time. I was like, okay, I'm gonna send you help tomorrow. So the next day, I literally overslept by a little bit, but I still got to work. But then I got at my office and realized I left my wallet home. So I drove all the way back home to get my wallet. And she literally calls me panicking, like, where are you? I'm like, oh, I already was there. I left. I had to go back and get my wallet, explaining, like, at the time, you're probably manager. Like, you're not an hourly employee, you're salary. So I'm thinking, like, she would have grace. She cussed me out. I have somebody from corporate there to help you, and you're not even there. And I was, like, just on the brink of just, like, having a nervous breakdown. Like, I know this lady is not tripping as hard as I worked yesterday and
Everything you've been through.
save these move-ins. I did all this stuff to keep the peace, and she's kept cussing me out by being 5 minutes late. And so I was at that time, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna quit. I
That's
hung up
it.
the phone with her. I called my husband. I was like, look, I don't think I could do this.
I'm out.
This is the funny thing. I was making close 6 figures. Like this is to tell you that chasing money you'll never win. At that time, I just bought a house. Like I was married. Like I had a baby. I actually had 2 at that time. And I literally called my husband like, I can't do it. If I don't quit, I'm gonna. You never know what
I
can happen.
lose my mind. I can't do this.
Yes. So then I called my mom, and then I called Michelle. I always had a plan B. So mind you, I
Ah,
didn't talk to Michelle in a long time. I literally ran into her maybe 2 weeks before this incident happened at the RIA, which I was explaining, and we reconnected. And I was like, "Oh my God, Michelle!" Like, and we just connected. We got each other new information, and literally this happened. This was right before Halloween in 2014. Remember, I met her in 2013. So 2014, speed it up. This happened after I talked to my mom and talked to my husband, and they was like, "Do what you gotta do." I called her. I was like, "Look, Michelle, I'm about to quit my job today. If I don't quit, something bad is gonna happen to me, and I can't kill myself. I can't stress out. Can I please work with you? I'll take any pay you can offer just to work with you and help me build my business." She was like, sure, you can work for me $10 an hour.
Let's
Mind you,
go.
6 figures, $10 an hour, and catch this, 15 hours a week.
Woo! Talk
I
about a change.
quit. I called I was like, you know what? I just need the opportunity. I just need to get in the door.
That's it.
So I called my manager, like, look, here are your keys. I actually walked to the girl who she had filling in. Here are the keys. Thank you. I won't be back. I quit that day. And then I went to work for Michelle. That was like on a Thursday. I went to work with Michelle that Monday. And ever since then, like Michelle, when I met her, God forgive her, God please, she's gonna kill me. Everything was still on spreadsheets. There was no software. She was also managing close to 30, 40 maybe 30, 40 properties at that time. So she was time for her to get some computerized things, but she was doing everything by the book. Literally, when I say this lady was managing everything herself, she would actually go and meet people at like local Starbucks, Panera's, to sign leases, to sign applications. Everything was by paper. This was in 2014.
That's not okay.
And I was like, I have something to offer her. I have a corporate background. I have that high level way of doing it. She cannot scale doing it the way she's doing it.
Absolutely.
She was bankrupt. She didn't even imagine seeing herself. When I say bankrupt, I mean physically and spiritually. Like she was tapped out because everything was done the old way. I was like, I have something of value to give her. We can scale up quickly with her structure, her knowledge, with my experience in the corporate world. We can really make an empire.
And what I really appreciate about this is that not only you took such a leap of faith, going from such a high level earning income, you were a property manager, you had individuals working under you, so you had your own team.
Yes.
You jumped ship to go to, while Michelle, everything that you met and connected with her, she was your mentor at the time, but you didn't have much other information. And from the salary alone, let alone let's talk about the fact that you had a house.
She didn't give up information freely.
Yeah.
I literally, like, even working with her now, she's built up such a wall. Like, you have to break that wall down for her to trust you. It's so funny, like, not to be like politically incorrect, because when I first started working with her and like telling my mom about her, my mom was so shocked that she was Asian. She was like, you know, they usually don't work with other minorities and stuff like that. I was just like, what? Like, I just didn't see that from her. But it wasn't not easy. Like, she's a perfectionist. Like, you really have to be a special person to earn her respect. And I literally had to like kind of force to take stuff from her because she was so secretive and everything was done in her way. And she did like such a beautiful job of kind of bringing out the science and the artistry of the industry that I respected and I adopted and I put into the business to this day. The way she just had her applications, the information she wanted to know. You know, I remember when I first did my first move-in with her, our home visit before we moved in somebody in, and then when we did the move-in orientation, it would take like an hour and a half. Tenants was so irritated. Like they was like, I can't believe like this is worse than buying a house. It was that intense.
Yeah. This is too much. We can't have like this.
And at that time, her thing was you take the initial time, you set it up this way, you won't have much problem down the line.
That's it.
So
that's a recurring theme. That's a recurring theme we continue to talk about. We mentioned earlier when we talked about the repairs, buying something that is a cheap or inexpensive quality, low level quality, it's going to affect you in the long term.
Same concept here. Low level. I'm a big believer that some things you can cut corners on. Like a lot of times, yes, cosmetic gets you a certain type of quality, but I find that if the property's in a stable location and you don't have to put in like granite, all this crazy stuff, you just do the basics. If you make sure the foundation is set up, you're going to have a long-term tenant that way. One of the things we'll talk about episodes down the line is me and Michelle, when we realized this how the homes are structured, we literally studied the science behind like how our homes built in the Baltimore row home. Like, why does this happen in like 90% of the homes? We sat down and was like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. A basement is going to flood if it's not waterproof. This is going to happen if we don't do this. So we actually studied like how did these homes, you know, because Baltimore has such a unique history in their homes and how they're structured. It's just like one of those things. Only people who are truly committed to this line of work really take the time out to study and be the best. And that's something that Michelle and I prided ourselves on. Like every certification, class, webinar, I've done it. I know everything. I probably at this point in my life can probably build a home from scratch. Maybe not physically, but know all the inner workings of it. Yeah, it's just something that unique. Even just doing this podcast right now, I felt like it was time for me. All the knowledge I stored in over the years, it's time for me to give back to our community because you and I together, I feel like we can build this audience where they can appreciate people who've been through so much to kind of know how to do it the right way. And like one of the things how we came up with our name of this podcast, Removing the Red Tape, because Baltimore, I hear it all the time. Like we have one of the unique jurisdictions where you can buy a row home in the city for maybe pre-COVID for the price of a Kia.
So,
You know?
well, a used Kia might actually, those prices went up. So maybe you're still spot on.
Yeah. So in other cities like New York, a lot of my owners are in New York, California.
Yeah.
It's unheard of. And we also are in a great area. Like I call it the land of milk and honey because you still have high enough rent as well as you can still cash out when it's time for you to sell eventually. So it's definitely one of those things that opportunity is there. People are catching on. Oh, let me get to home in Baltimore because I know how the rents are. But you also have to think about like the government and a lot of the red tapes that's involved. And like I said, even meeting with you, one of the things I would tell you things like it kind of actually educated me on how to deal with you. The city is requiring this, and I like to educate my clients so we can manage the expectation. But you never like sat there and focused on what you can't control. You focus on okay, so how do we combat this? Like what's the next step? And that energy will take you to the next level. It's such an infectious energy that I just love.
I respect it. I respect it. Shanika, you are too kind and too generous with your words. So it sounds to me like we have a lot to discuss on future podcasts.
Yes.
We are reaching that time. So Shanika, I'll turn it over to you. I mean, my goodness, the fact that you've analyzed the study of the buildings and the structures and how that's all made, the land of milk and honey, we just have so much to chat about in future episodes. What's that?
I said you can get a house for the price of a car.
That's it, 100%. And I'm sure we'll talk about in a future episode about where to go, right? Good areas, bad areas, where to focus on, how to analyze deals. There's so much to discuss, Neek. So much to discuss.
Well, that's episode 1.
That's our first one.
I told you I was going to try to spit something, but I didn't come prepared. No, I didn't. Okay, I was going to try to rap some bars, but no.
Just so we're all on the same
I'll work
page.
on that later down the line.
So we're all on the same page. Neek and I were talking, and she's going to be dropping a fire rhyme, little freestyle, little rap-a-rooski in a future episode. So make sure we've said it out loud. It's out in the universe. Neek,
yes, I got to work on my rap.
All right, bet.
If you enjoyed this content we shared and you would like to connect with us, we're going to drop down our specific businesses in the description box of this video. You can find us on YouTube, as well as we're going to provide our email addresses to connect. Myself, I am a property manager with Property Wise, and Nat, he owns his own coaching business. He's a guru of the BRRR family. And actually, the next episode, we're going to dive into his history and how he got started. So this podcast was created for people like-minded that just wants to get into real estate, don't know how, don't know what, don't know when, and they really want to do it in the right way. They want to understand the ins and outs, and we named it Removing the Red Tape with Real Estate, featuring Nat and Neek. So I'm Neek, he's Nat, and check us out. Oh, as always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Signing out.
Neek, are you kidding me? That was incredible. What? Let's go.
I was so nervous. That was crazy.
What? Crush that. That was amazing.
I need more work. This is not easy as I thought it was.
No. First off, the fact, you crushed it. We crushed it. It was incredible.
I love that. Thank you. You're such a great support. You pushed this out of me.
We're making moves. We're making moves.
Hopefully someone can do something with it. But I want to hear about your journey, and I would love for you to dig in about how you got started.
I have so many questions for you. This is going to be interesting to figure out how we can balance it all. Not only about your past, I have more questions on, but then even things you touched on that I'm curious about from an investing side. So I can see a lot of benefit selfishly for us, but I'd imagine the viewers, the listeners are going to want to learn a little bit more about the land of milk and honey.
Yeah. A good segment down the line is like post-COVID because things have dried up and interest rates are high. How are you still able to dig in and find like little pockets of things? And I want to come in and help, but I'm also one of those people where if I know a property was $50K 2 years ago, I'm telling my owners like I don't know, I just feel like the gumption to still buy it unless it really makes sense. It's really scary to me, and that's something that I'm struggling with right now.
For sure. Oh man, we have so much to talk about.
Yes. See, you're the guru and like jumping out there, and you've probably been doing really good homework. How do you feel about the interest rates right now?
Oh, they're so high. They're so high. Admittedly, not a lot of people know this, but I'll share this with you. We're in the process of buying our own home.
Oh,
So thank you very much. I
congratulations!
appreciate that.
That's
So
awesome. What area?
it's bittersweet, right? It's gonna actually be 4 minutes away. So we're gonna be still in the Elk Ridge area.
Okay.
So Caitlin and I are going to be moving over to, I guess, just down the street, essentially.
Awesome.
But it's
Congratulations,
thank
guys.
you, appreciate that.
Are
So
you
with
taking all your post-its with you?
oh, did you see that? Yeah, I literally, Caitlin's the organization. She is the
Oh
organized
my God, I
queen.
love it. It's so motivating.
I had a full conversation with her. I mean, I can't even explain you the notes and everything that I
So
have. And
is
I had
this like the luck stuff? Like what's on those notes? Like we need to do an episode of that. What's on those notepads? Is it like affirmations? Like what?
that specifically, this is all
Yeah.
my to-dos for real estate.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking it's like affirmation. I'm like, that is we probably need to dig into those that's the content. Like
I have affirmations and quotes on that wall and
oh
on my
my
cell phone. I'm
God. I
big into
love
quotes.
it.
Big into quotes. Love quotes. Love
Yes,
quotes.
and I love that I can talk to you about that. It's like a secret society. Like a lot of people be like, "That's bogus." It really works.
It is for sure.
Affirmation,
I couldn't agree more.
manifestation,
I couldn't
all of
agree
that.
more. And then kind of the idea behind your mindset about the only focus on what you can control. I couldn't agree more with
Oh
all that
my
content.
God.
Yeah.
You really don't
Um,
understand. Like, I got to give you your flowers. Just, I've never met somebody. That's why I was like, we need to do a podcast because I don't know what it is. I don't mean, that's why I said the fact that I've been doing this for so long and I have connected with some owners and owners on a different level, but just the way you were able to educate me and how you can be trying for your own negativity. The difference with me is like, I don't stay in a negative place long, but I do like to be aware.
sure.
So I like to bring that up because sometimes I like to solve things and fix stuff, and sometimes that can be to my detriment because it's things that I can't control. So me talking about it, letting it out, letting me remind myself like, don't go crazy because this is something you can't control. But then it also helps me when I work with people like yourself, my partner, that gives me a different mindset. Like, well, there's ways around it. We can
Yeah.
just do this, or you can come up with this. It just gives like I feel like this can help people in this industry right now.
So that's what everyone needs. Everyone
Yeah.
needs for sure. Couldn't agree more.